In this video, we are going to see stateless session bean and singleton session bean. So let us start with stateless session bean first. Now, stateless session beans are business objects that hold conversation for a single client invoke method call. That is, they do not maintain any conversational state with a client. Matlab, they do not work when a single client is calling multiple methods on the bean. No, it can call only one single method on a bean. So they don't store any state that is associated with the client. So the access to this single unit or the single bean instance is limited to only one client at a time. So one client is accessing the bean, another client cannot access the same instance. So concurrent access to the bean is not allowed. In case anyone is attempting the concurrent access, the container will simply route each request to the different instance. So what happens actually is there are multiple instances of stateless beans which are created. So we say that the instances of the stateless session beans are pooled. So multiple instances are created. One request comes, it goes to the first instance. Second request comes, it goes to the second instance. Third request comes, it goes to the third instance. So there's a pool of beans created, and as the request comes, the instances are allocated to one. As the request is coming, one instances are allocated. Now, secondly, what you have to remember is suppose client number 1 is accessing instance number 1. Now client number 1 is done accessing instance number 1. Suppose there is another client that comes. It can be allocated the same instance. So in short, the instances are reusable. The instances are reusable. Okay. Now, what is the example of a stateless session bean? Maybe, just sending a mail to someone. So it is a one-step operation, right? Or verification of a credit card number. It is one-step operation. You don't have to remember any details, nothing. In one step, everything is done. So in such cases, you can always use stateless session beans. Another thing that is important to notice is stateless session beans will not hold data or will not store any data that is specific to a particular client. So for all the clients, the beans are similar. So they don't remember the client state. They do not remember the client state. And that's the only reason we can reuse the same instance for handling multiple client requests. Obviously, not at the same time. One after the other. Not at the same time, one after the other, as I told you earlier. Okay? Now, whatever tasks that I'm going to use with or that I'm going to perform with stateless session bean, they should represent some kind of actions, and such actions that can be performed in a single step. Only then I'll use stateless session bean. If I need multiple steps for the same client, then I should go with stateful session bean, because then I have to remember, okay, this is the first method call from client A and this is the second method call from client A only. When I have to remember that, stateful is used. Single step actions are there, stateless is used. So stateless beans should be used if the task that is needed to perform can be accomplished in a single method invocation and there is no data that is specific for a client. So whenever I have to perform generic tasks for all the clients, then I can always use stateless session bean. If I want to fetch some data from the database, then or I have to retrieve some table rows, or I have to present some information to the client with help of I have to provide access to the database and present some information on the screen, I can easily use stateless session bean. Okay. Now, what are the cases when I should not use stateless session bean? If the action or the task that I want to perform goes beyond a single step, then I should not use stateless session bean. And if I wish that whatever we are doing, that has to be visible to multiple clients at the same time, that is concurrent access has to be given, then again in that case I should not use a stateless session bean. Now whatever we have seen, it will help you to write answers to the questions like what is stateless session bean, when stateless session bean should be used and should not be used, what are the applications of the stateless session bean. All these answers you can write with whatever I have discussed till now. Now another part of stateless session bean is life cycle of the stateless session bean. Now the life cycle of stateless session bean is very simple because it has only two states: does not exist and ready. There is no passive step or passivate step in this particular life cycle as we had seen for stateful. Stateful mein there were three states, but here there are only two states: does not exist and ready. Now EJB container will create and it will maintain a pool of stateless session beans at beginning of the stateless session beans life cycle. Now, as soon as the bean instance is created, I have to perform any dependency injection if it is there. And then the method that is annotated with @post construct, that method will be called. Now, once that method is called, your bean is ready. Your bean will go in the ready state and it is ready for, its business methods can be invoked by the client now. Now once the bean is used and it has scattered to the clients, now I want to destroy it. So at end of the life cycle, the EJB container itself will call the method that is annotated with @predestroy. If any such method is there, it will be called. And once that method is called, your bean instance is ready for garbage collection. So that's it for the stateless session bean. So this was the life cycle of the stateless session bean. Now we move on to singleton session bean. So again we see the similar things. What is the concept and then what is the life cycle. So stateful session beans are used when you want to remember the client. Stateless are used when only a single method invocation is there and it is a simple task which is generic for all the clients. Why will I use singleton session bean now? Singleton session bean is used when I want to share some information that is common for everyone. So I want to share some application-wide data and I want to support concurrent access. That is, multiple users will see the same information. In that case, I will use singleton session bean. Now in English also, singleton, single means one. So in singleton session bean, only one instance per application is created and the instance stays on. It exists for the complete life cycle of the application. So whenever I want to show anyone the global state, then I'll use singleton session bean. Now by default, the singleton session beans, they are transactional and thread safe. Because you want to support concurrency, right? Only one bean instance is there and everyone is accessing it. So when I want to support concurrency, thread safe is very important. Now, the next thing that you need to remember is, if you wish that, as soon as everything starts up, your bean instance should also be created, then you can use the annotation called as @startup. Now singleton session beans, like any other EJBs, they are POJs which are annotated with @singleton. Now there is very much, there is a similarity between the singleton session bean and stateless session bean. But there is one major difference, and that difference is that in case of singleton session bean, there is only one singleton session bean per application. Only one singleton session bean per application. Whereas in case of stateless session beans, there is a pool of stateless session beans, any of which may be used to respond to the client request, because all the beans are same. There is no client specific data. So that is the main difference between singleton and stateless session bean. Now, what is the situations where I'll use singleton session beans? I want to share the state across the application. I want to ensure that the bean can be accessed by multiple clients concurrently. So it needs to be accessed by multiple threads simultaneously or concurrently. Suppose I want that application should perform some task upon startup and shutdown, then I can use session bean for that. Now again, going on to the life cycle of Singleton session bean. If you see the diagram, you will say that this diagram is exactly same as stateless session bean. Yes, it is. But the working is different, because EJB container will not create a pool of bean instances now, but it will create only Singleton instance, that is one instance. Okay. This occurs upon application deployment if the Singleton bean is annotated with @startup notation, as I have already told you. Okay. Now, once that Singleton instance is created, any dependency injection or any @post construct callback, whatever is there, that will happen. Okay. And once the post construct is done, once the @post construct method is called, @post construct method means what? Any method that is annotated with @post construct. Once that method is called, the bean is ready. Now multiple clients can access the bean. Obviously simultaneous access is supported, and in the end, when the container wants to destroy that bean, @pre-destroy method will be called. @pre-destroy method means any method that is annotated with @pre-destroy. And then obviously once such method is called, the bean is ready for garbage collection, and then everything can be deleted. That's it for stateless session beans and Singleton session beans. Thank you.